Hey everyone, welcome to the Torah Matinee Shiur. It was a good Shabbat, and it's nice to be able to do a review for you. The sun's shining fiercely here in Monterey. Beautiful day, just crazily beautiful day. And but if I kind of scrunch over here into the corner, um, the glare's not so bad, right? Over here, I can't see a thing. But such is life. If that's the biggest complaint I have today is that the sun shines, yay. Um, this week I had to examine my motives. The I get like two views. I got like two views on the last year, and I suspect that both of those were me, and so that means nobody listens. And so, why do I do these? Well, if it's so that people will listen, then I'm failing miserably. I should quit. Um, if I'm doing it um, because I'm compelled to teach, that's another thing. And uh, and so I've been thinking about that. Like, uh, am I a teacher? Well, my entire career, that's what I've been. I went to college, like many of you, and I worked my way through with various teaching jobs. I've had great teaching jobs. One of the ones I'm proudest of is down at Adventure 16 in San Diego. I was a rock climbing instructor, and just an avid rock climber, and a lot of experience. Yosemite in the 80s and the 70s. By the end of the 70s, God, I'm old. So so I had a lot of experience in it, and I was able to leverage that into Adventure 16 and become a climbing instructor. And I rose through the ranks, and I would teach the climbing skills weekend, which was just really excellent. And concurrent with that was a first aid fetish, and I was a CPR instructor. I became an instructor trainer, which means that I trained instructors. First aid was the same thing. I took first aid. I took advanced first aid. Became a wilderness first responder, and then started teaching in advanced first aid for the Red Cross. Um, in college, I trained to become an editor. As an editor, that was for sure a teaching job. you know, I mean, people would just be so mad when I would edit their writing, but such is life. Okay, so editor. Then desktop publishing happened. I went back to school, became a graphic designer. Beautiful long career in all of that, and but a component of that was that I taught graphic design at the Advertising Arts College. Um, then the whole Mashgiach HaKashrut thing. You had to teach people how kosher works, and and now I tell stories. I'm the storyteller. I write books. Anybody who writes books, well, they're a teacher. So we've been learning Pirkei Avot, and I want to show you this thing. It's really super excellent. It talks about all the stages in life and what's expected of a person in their life as they work through the stages. Right now, this is going to be tricky because I'm looking at this upside down and backwards and every sort of thing. But it's gonna, it goes through the ages, right? We got a 5-year old. We've got, gee whiz, I'm gonna have to look at it because I don't want to misquote this, right? But it goes through stages, right? Like first you start learning a little bit of, Chumash, then a little bit of Mishnah, then some Halacha. You get old enough to, you know, get a family. Maybe you have to start working. Then, you get certain types of strengths, and right, and then finally you just so so what this means is that at 5 years a person learns chumash, At 10, he learns Mishnah. 13, he has a chiyuv for the mitzvot. 15, he starts learning Talmud. 18, marriage. At 20, he earns a parnasa. 30, it's when he enters into his strength. All right, what do they call it? Koach. So then at 40, he gets understanding. What's that? Bina? Probably. I don't know. Here it is. Yeah, Bina. At 50, Leatzach. Okay, so at 60, he gets an old age. At 70, I'm going to get myself in trouble here, right? So at 60, a person gets an old age. At 70, he gets the hoary head, but everywhere. And then at 80, you have a special strength. At 90, okay, you're starting to bend a little bit. 100, it's all just, you're already there. All right. So, but right now I'm holding at. I'll be 60 this year. Right. So that puts me right here. That okay. So at 40, I had understanding. Well, that was the time for understanding. Well, gee whiz, I worked hard on that. At 50 for counsel. That means you take what you learn and turn it into practical advice based on situations. Okay, so counsel. But at 60, I'm gonna have old age. Wow, I should have looked that up. We'll talk about that next time. Right? What does old age mean? But right now I'm on the tail end of counsel, which means I'm a teacher. So here it is. That's why I do the Shiur, is because I teach. And if you want to listen, that's fine. If you don't, that's also fine. So this week was Parshat Emor, and in Parshat Emor, we learn about the Kohainim and the Bnei Kohainim, and that there's a Isser of Tamei Mate, which means that they can't touch a dead body, and they relate this to the Nazir. So that's what we're going to talk about today, about spiritual contamination in relation to touching a dead person. So there's various relationships in Judaism by which a person mourns the death. Okay, so these are the close relatives. There's husband and wife, father, mother, children, God forbid. So these people you have a chiyuv. So meaning, if you're a Kohen, who a priest, and you're not, you shouldn't touch a dead person. Yet, if it's one of these relationships, then you can, right? If there's nobody else to do it, then even for someone who isn't one of your relations, that's a discussion worth having. But we learn by the Kohen Gadol that even for those he shouldn't. And then they say an interesting pasuk at the end that even a husband, Stam, shouldn't contaminate himself for the one who desecrates him. All right, so we're learning about the Kohen, right? So the Kohen has a special status in Klal Yisrael, that they don't marry divorcees. They have to have kosher marriages. And if they don't have a kosher marriage, then they lose the kahuna, which means that they no longer do the brachat kohanim. They wouldn't be able to diagnose saras, serve in the temple, eating the sacrificial offerings. There's a discussion there about. but the kahuna is a big deal to a kohen, and they don't mess it up. And so what it says here is that a kohen is a husband, but he marries one of these forbidden relationships, then he's not allowed to become tame for that person. Wow, we got a really weird glare thing going on. Sorry about that. All right. So, but we've said that the Kohen Gadol has a greater restriction than a head yod, right? Than a stam Kohen. So, so why is that, right? So we learn an interesting thing here that yeah, yeah. Okay, so a Kohen's born into his thing. If your father was a Kohen, then you're a Kohen, right? Bnei Avram, I mean Bnei Aaron, it goes right down the line. So you're born into the Kahuna. On the other hand, the Kohen Gadol is appointed, and so he has to represent a higher level because everybody's counting on him to do his special role, and so because he has a special role, he has a special situation. He has to hold himself highly. We see that by the same thing by the Nazir. A Nazir also has a restriction against Tommy mate, and his case is a little different because the Nazir chooses to have these restrictions upon himself, and so because he chooses them, you can't go against your decisions like that. A person has to be honest. Um, but some Rob Pliskin brings something really nice about this pasuk, right? And he talks about how Aaron was loved peace, right? That his characteristic was that he pursued peace, that he loved peace, um, and that he would work hard on pursuing peace. And so it's recommended that people should work on this characteristic for themselves also. But sometimes when we try to make peace among people, um, we may compromise our position. As an Orthodox Jew, sometimes it can be kind of embarrassing. Um, and so if we were to not say a blessing after eating bread because we were embarrassed that people would see us praying and then be like, "Wow, you freak." That in order to pursue peace, we can't really violate our essence. So that's what Rav Pliskin is saying here is that this is the defilement that can occur. Is that in the pursuit of peace, we compromise ourselves. So we have to be really careful. Um, Another thing is that if you come around people who are aggressive or violent or negative or aren't practicing social distancing, it's important to stay away from such things and not be negatively influenced, right? Because it's important to have joy and happiness. That these are Rob Pliskin suggests that joy and happiness are essential to a person who is interested in having a good life. So if a person wants to have a good life, then avoid quarreling. Avoid quarrelsome people, and this very small thing will reap huge benefits. Um, okay, good stuff, right? I really like that. Now we've been learning in the Daf Yomi about the different things that a person can carry when they go out, and and they mention an interesting. It's kind of just a little side note, but there's um, there's a there's an idea in Judaism that the language itself, the Hebrew language, is extremely holy, and you're able to just hide all sorts of meanings inside the letters, and the letters themselves have meaning and holiness, and certain combinations of letters certainly aren't taken lightly, and Hashem's name spelled in certain ways makes, especially if they're written by a scribe on a piece of parchment. Now all of a sudden, this piece of parchment has holiness. It contains holiness, and so we're real careful with those kinds of documents. About carrying them in bathrooms, about taking them any place they can be defiled. We keep them clean. We don't let them get errors. They don't get scratched. They don't get wet. They don't get stains. We're real careful with kedusha things, and so they say that, and so there's a kedusha thing. Um, I'm forgetting the name, but it's a type of amulet that has like a little like a scribe writes a parchment and it uses Hashem's name, and it's a sort of a blessing or some sort of lucky charm. And there are those who believe in such things. It's not forbidden to believe in such things, and so a person could wear one of these on Shabbat if it was made by an expert. Meaning, if it's not made by an expert, then it might even not be real, and then it's just decorative. But it's worse than that. It's right. It's an unholy thing that you think is holy, and that's scary, right? Like that's not honest. When you think that unholy things are holy, well, that's a problem. So we were talking about this amulet, right? And I got to thinking, um, I can compare it really easily to another situation that I personally had. I'm one of those guys who wears all these string things hanging off of me, and those have a lot of, there's a lot of rules associated with that, and if one of the strings is clearly broken, and we talk about the ends and the length of the broken part, and if they're on opposite sides, and we're careful to keep the four strings separate and the very end, so that we know if one's broken and the other one's broken and they're from the same side and whatever, right? We know this, but I was looking at my talit katan, and one of the strings was broken at the place where it goes through the hole. I mean, there's no discussion there. The string is broken, right? Where you can see it's broken. And but I didn't notice that because we always check the ends. Like I wasn't so careful to check the top where it's attached. So for a long time, I was wearing this talit katan and I was saying a bracha, and it was puzzle, dude. That's bad. Like when a person notices that their talit is puzzle, they take it off. Boom. So wow, I felt really bad. Like I had puzzle talit katan. So what's the point of all of that? Is that sometimes things aren't what they appear, right? That it looks kosher, smells kosher, tastes kosher. What? Novela? A treifa? Oy vey. Right, so we learned such a thing in the Mishnah Berurah also. I'm learning Hilchos Shabbos. It's funny. I learn really slow, and that's an understatement. I've been learning Hilchos Shabbos ever since San Diego. I was learning it with Rabbi Bloom and Rand Levin, and I started Mishnah Berurah with Eddie way back when, and I was probably learning Hilchos Shabbos then. So we've been learning about the type of wine that can be used for Kiddush, And so there's the dilution of the wine is is an interesting point, and so we learned that it should be a mixture of 1 part wine to 6 parts water, and that's the bare minimum of maximum dilution. But there's a wrinkle is added to the discussion, in that, well, what if you make wine out of raisins, right? Like, because we learned earlier that a person can take a handful of grapes, squeeze the juice out, and make kiddush on it. Now, I'm not so sure about how you squeeze grapes on Shabbos, but the short line was that even grapes that were just squeezed uh, can be used. So raisins can also be used. So the way that they would measure it is that 1 part in 6, meaning you would fill the cup or whatever with raisins, and then you would put in enough water so it'd be less than 6 parts. So this much grapes, this much water, kosher. There's those who say that it needs to sit for an amount of time. Um, if you chop up the grapes, that makes a difference. The discussion about if the grapes are fat as opposed to shriveled, the amount of flavor, the amount of sugar, the wineness aspect of it. But they bring an interesting thing that says, right, Ramah, right? There's others. Yeah. If it tastes like wine, it's wine. If it tastes like wine, it's wine. So they have a discussion about vinegar, right? Vinegar, it's beautiful wine, right? Open it up, smells bad, tastes like wine. Can you use it? Okay. What if it tastes bad, smells good? Can you use it? Right? This isn't a halacha shiur. But the point of that was to show that if it tastes like wine, it's wine. So sometimes our actions, our thoughts, our words, they don't feel good. They don't taste good in our mouth. Like, say you're impatient with somebody, you say a sharp comment. Okay, you apologize, but still you said the comment. But that taste in your mouth, right? This is a refined character, right? That we walk around careful. People have learned, through this coronavirus situation, to wash their hands. Good. Jews have always washed their hands, and then we're careful. Um, yeah, clean hands and a clean heart, a clean mind. How do you see it? You see it in a clean mouth, right? Those who know me know I have issues with having a clean mouth. So I did it before. I'll do it again. I'll wrap it up here. Um, I like Kedusha music, and there's one guy who Hillel had this CD, and Yaakov Shweki, right? And he's in concert, and he does this song, and again I'll mess it up, but um, wow, it comes from the blessings of the Shema, and it says, "Kulanu yodei shemecha velomdei toratecha lishmo sitzianu v'sitzienu v'macha beit Yisrael." Kulano yodei shemecha v'lomdei toratecha lishmo. Isn't that beautiful? God, I love that song. But what it says here is that all of us who know your name, let us study your Torah for its own sake. Just because we love it, and because the information's useful, and it gives us a way to live a life. and gives us something to talk about. You know, if this is what becomes beautiful in a person's life, if this becomes the kind of things that a person wants in life, then chase after it. Chazaka Baruch. May we all find good things to chase after and to have holy thoughts and think beautiful things and to appreciate beauty and sit out of the glare, right? Only good things for all of us. And I'll see you again next week. All right. Bye.